that go.
Okay.
All right, so this taxi passenger tapped the driver on the shoulder to ask him a question about the city. And the driver screamed, lost control of the car, nearly hit a bus, drove up on the sidewalk, stopped the car inches before it crashed through the front of the store window. Both men sat completely silent till the driver turned and goes, "Look, man, I don't you ever do that to me again. You scared the shit out of me." And the passenger's like, I'm sorry. I didn't realize a little tap would scare you so much. And the driver says, "It's all right. It's not your fault, really. Today's my first day as a cab driver. Before this, I drove a hearse."
Yeah.
This admiral, he's staring off the deck of his battleship at the approaching enemy on the horizon. "Fetch my red shirt," the admiral says to the first officer. "If I'm wounded in battle, I don't want my men to see I'm bleeding. It'll kill the morale." "But sir," says the first officer, "there is a fleet of 15 ships coming after us." "Oh shit," says the admiral. "In that case, get my brown pants, please." This heartless drill instructor screaming at the platoon over an hour got in the face of a private and he yells, "I bet when I die you'll show up at my grave and spit on it." "Not me," says the private. "After I get the hell out of the army, I'm never standing in a fucking line again." This cop pulls a woman over. She's blonde. She's going the wrong way down a one-way street. "Where the heck do you think you're going?" the cop asks. "I don't know, but I gotta be late because it looks like everybody's coming back." Did you hear about the man who got a job as a human cannonball? He was so excited he went ballistic.
Oh.
You know how the circus owner got so rich? He spent years paying his employees peanuts. Bastard. There's a pizza place near where I live, and it sells just slices. And if you look in the back, you can see a guy tossing triangles in the air. This church put an ad in the newspaper for a person to ring the bell in the belfry on Sunday morning, but nobody applied except for one guy with no arms. The church administrator isn't sure he can handle the job, but the man climbs the tower and he rings the bell using his head. Well, on his first Sunday on the job, the man gets a little too excited and he hits the bell a little bit too hard with his melon, and he falls from the belfry and lands on the church steps. And two parishioners who were late for service rushed past him. "Who was that guy?" the wife asked the husband as they entered. "I'm not sure," the husband said, "but his face rings a bell." You know why the weathermen take a leave of absence after the break? Why one weatherman took a leave of absence after he broke both of his arms and both of his legs? Well, he'd have a hell of a problem working with the forecasts. This college professor was really worried about his recent study on earthquakes. It turns out all his findings were on shaky ground.
No.
You know, Elias Howe, he was credited with being the inventor of the zipper, but most of his friends called him the Lord of the Flies. Did you know that?
That's great.
Why are photographers always so depressed? Because they don't do anything all day but focus on the negatives, bastards.
No.
You know, even in Second Life, I always wanted to be somebody. But now I realize I should have been more specific. Oh, well. This guy goes to get a haircut, and the barber says, "Should I cut the hair in the back?" And the man goes, "What's wrong with doing the right hair in this chair?" I don't get it. I don't know. Oh, well, I guess. Did you hear everyone at the Mint went on strike? They wanted to make less money.
Oh.
That's cute.
What did one geologist say to the other while they both stared down at a giant fissure in the rocks? "I wonder whose fault this is."
adorable. I love that.
This woman's amazed by a pastor who lives next door and how quickly he changes his personality. Well, around the neighborhood, he's incredibly shy, quiet, and timid. But as soon as he starts preaching, he becomes loud, boisterous. He's like a Randy Always. He's able to entertain the congregation with his sermons.
Huh.
I'm not sure how your personality affects the woman. Oh, the pastor says it's simple. That guy in the church, he's my alter ego.
Oh.
This blonde construction worker accidentally cuts off one of his ears with an electric saw. And he calls to the guy walking out in the street below, "Hey, you see my ear down there?" And the guy on the street picks up the ear and he goes, "Is this it?" "No," says the construction worker. "Mine had this pencil behind it." These two factory workers are talking, and a woman says, "I can make the boss give me day off." And the man goes, "How would you do that?" And the woman says, "Just wait and see." And then she hangs upside down from the ceiling, and the boss comes in and goes, "What are you doing?" And the woman says, "I'm a light bulb." And the boss says, "I think you've been working so much you've gone crazy. I think you need to take the day off." So the man starts to follow her, and the boss is like, "Where are you going?" And the man says, "I'm going home too. How am I supposed to work in the fucking dark?" This young man's fired from his job after asking customers if they wanted smoking or non-smoking. Yeah. He was fired because the correct terminology in the funeral home business is cremation or burial. Unable to read the name on the label of the package, the postman decided that the weight of the box and the words left on the ripped label mean that the package is for the local bookshop. So he says, "I got a package I think is for you," tells the store owner. "Well, what's the name on the label?" the store owner says. "Well, that's the problem," the mailman says. "It's obliterated." "Oh, well, hell, that can't be me," says the store owner. "My name's John." You know, I'll never forget the time they gave me a farewell party at work. I was so surprised. I didn't even know I got fired. Two painters paint a house, and they hand the customer the bill, and the customer notices that the man charged no money for the actual paint. And the customer's like, "You guys did such a good job. Why aren't you charging me for the paint?" And the head painter looks at the man and goes, "Oh, don't worry about the paint. It's on the house."
Oh.
It's on the house.
Did you hear about the farmer who won an award from the U.S. Department of Agriculture? He was outstanding in his field.
Mm-hmm.
Outstanding in his field. Oh,
Yeah. So this client got a bill from his lawyer in the mail, and he's livid at the amount. He calls the lawyer to berate him for charging such ridiculous fees. And the lawyer listens for a minute, and then he stops the client mid-sentence and goes, "You know, you're being a real jerk about this, and I'm beginning to regret naming my first boat after you."
Huh? Oh, wait a minute.
I missed that. I was coughing.
Oh, you know you're really being a jerk about this, the lawyer says. "I'm beginning to regret naming my first boat after you." This real successful lawyer bought a new Ferrari, and he parked in the front of his office ready to show it to his colleagues. He wanted to show off. As he gets out of... This truck passes too close and completely tears off the door on the driver's side. And the counselor immediately grabs his cell phone, dials 911, and within minutes, cops pull up to take the report. Well, before the police officer has a chance to ask any questions, the lawyer starts screaming hysterically. His Ferrari, which he just picked up the day before, was now completely ruined. It would never be the same, no matter what the body shop did. And when the lawyer finally toned down from his ranting and raving, the officer shook his head in disgust. And he says, "I can't believe how materialistic you lawyers are. All you care about is money and your possessions. And the lawyer unleashes a stream of obscenities before the officer can even calm him down. He's like, hear me out, see you. You're so worried about your car you didn't even notice that the accident took your left arm off. Oh my God, the lawyer goes, where's my fucking Rolex? This Texan lands in Sydney, and he's picked up by a taxi. After requesting a tour of the city, he starts into a tirade about the small town airport. How in Texas they got big runways, even on their ranches. Bigger ones, even on the ranches they have them. So they're soon crossing the Sydney Harbor Bridge, and the Texan's further unimpressed. He's like, hell, I got a duck pond bigger than that harbor, and an ornamental bridge to span it. That makes this look like a toy. The Sydney-Newcastle Expressway also gets his scorn. He's like, this is a road? Is this a road? Or is this a track? Ha! So when the kangaroo jumps out in front of the cab, causing a sudden severe application of the brakes, the driver can't help himself. Bloody grasshoppers, he says. The National Transportation Safety Board recently divulged they have funded a project with the American car makers over the past 5 years. In the Covert Project, car makers install black boxes in four-wheel drive pickup trucks in an effort to determine in fatal accidents the circumstances in the last 15 seconds before a crash. Well, they were shocked to find that in 49 of the 50 states, the last words of the drivers in 61.2% of fatal crashes were, "Oh shit." Only the state of Texas was different. There, 89.3% of the final words were, "Hey, y'all, hold my beer and watch this." Mrs. Cohen and Mrs. Levy and Mrs. Lefkowitz were discussing their sons. Mrs. Cohen says, "Now, my Sheldon, what a man, a world-famous lawyer. He is. He's a big shot. He's got big clients, a mansion in Beverly Hills, a summer home in Hawaii. He's got a beautiful wife, everything a man could want in the world." Mrs. Levy says, "Oh, that's so nice, but let me tell you about my son, Jonathan. He's a doctor, a world-famous researcher. He travels across the world on conferences, talks, lectures. He was nominated for a Nobel Prize in medicine. What a man." Mrs. Lefkowitz says, "Oh, my Herschel, he's an engineer. Now, he makes maybe $35,000 a year, and he's not famous, but his penis is so long, you can line up 10 pigeons in a row on it." Well, the ladies sip their tea for a while, and then Mrs. Cohen says, "Well, actually, I have a confession to make. Sheldon's an up-and-coming lawyer in Los Angeles, but he doesn't have a mansion or a summer home. He's a bright young man with a good future." Mrs. Levy says, "Well, then I got a confession, too. Jonathan is a good doctor. He got a share of scholarships, but a Nobel Prize winner he isn't." They all look expectantly at Mrs. Lefkowitz. And she goes, "Oh, well, all right. I'll tell the truth, too. That last bird's got to stand on one leg."
Oh my God.
Oi, oi.
Four people are in the final stages of interviewing for a prestigious job, and the managing director decides to call them in one by one and ask them a question. The first applicant's called in, and the managing director poses the question, "What's the fastest thing in the world?" And the applicant thinks for a moment. "That would have to be a thought." "Why do you say that?" asks the managing director. "Well," the person says, "a thought takes no time at all. It's your mind in an instant, and then it's gone again." "Ah, very good. Thank you," says the director. Next, the same question is posed to the second applicant. "What is the fastest thing in the world?" She pauses and says, "It'd have to be a blink." "Yeah." "Why?" asks the managing director. Well, because you don't even think about a blink. It's just a reflex. You do it in an instant. The managing director thanks her and calls in the next person. Third applicant asks us, what's the fastest thing in the world? And after hesitating for a brief moment, he says, I'd have to say electricity. Well, why? Well, because a man can flip a switch and immediately 10 km away, a light will go on. Very good, says the managing director. And then the final applicant's called in. He too's asked, what's the fastest thing in the world? Oh, that's easy, he says. That would have to be diarrhea. Rather stunned, the managing director's like, why did you say diarrhea? He goes, well, last night after dinner, I was lying in my bed and I got the worst stomach cramps, and before I could think, blink, or turn on the lights,
Oh, that's terrible. But
Now, the fact that everybody's here is a fact that tells me that you all have too much of modern life. And here are some signs that you've had too much of modern life. You buy a computer and a week later it's out of date and now it sells for half the price you paid.
right.
You exchange emails several times a day with a stranger from South Africa, but you haven't spoken to your next door neighbor this year yet. Right? Right.
Yeah.
You consider second day air delivery as painfully slow, right? You got a list of 15 phone numbers to reach your family of 3 people. Yeah. You haven't played solitaire with a real deck of cards in years. That's me. Well, I have, but yeah. Or your reason for not staying in touch with family is they don't have email addresses. And that's mine for the night, boys and girl.
Yay! For Wynott, everyone! Hooray for Wynott! So much.
Nice.
All right, I'm just going to do a couple of jokes, and then we're going to hand things off to Jamie. Jamie wants